of those guys are basically not going to play at all until they get rid of Chris Dunn. And that's going to be a very tough room to manage for Boyland. And I think that's going to be one of his big challenges. But, I mean, I really don't see it, Jason. They added so much depth to this team. Denzel Valentine didn't play at all last year due to injury pretty much. Luke Cornett came in, who's going to be a nice backup big man for them, I think. Chandler Hutchinson's a young player who could step in and play some more minutes after being really overmatched a year ago. And really, I think one of the sleepers on this team is Otto Porter Jr., who was absolutely phenomenal from the moment he stepped onto the Bulls last year. I mean, he was tremendous. This was a guy who was about 50-50-90 while he was with the Bulls. He shot nearly 50% from the floor, nearly 50% from three, and 90% from the line. I mean, he was incredible. Had the best stretch of his career, really, with the Bulls. And I think the combination of that starting lineup, I really think this is a solid team. So I'm not worried about Boylan one bit, to be honest with you.
Okay, so if we both have them sneaking into the playoffs with Jim Boylan retaining his job after you've done a complete 180 and now you like the guy, I don't know what's happening to you.
I mean, I'm not gonna say I like him. He's in a great situation. I mean, he basically had a worst case scenario a year ago, and so now whatever he does this year, I mean, he could defecate on himself on the sideline this year, and he'd still look better than he did a year ago. So I mean, there's nowhere to go but up for him, and I think that's gonna serve him well this year for a team that sort of illogically seems like they're kind of trying to win this year with the front office moves, but nonetheless, I think it's going to be a huge benefit for him.
So, once again, I'm going to change my floor, and I'm going to say a bottom 3 seed in the East. If things go horribly wrong and Jim Boylan gets shown the door and they finish ahead of maybe the Wizards and the Hornets, and then they take that 13th seed, which is what no one wants. We want to see the Bulls do good. It's good for the league. So, I do think their floor would be a bottom 3 seed.
Yeah, and for me, the floor is about 30 games, winning 30 games, maybe not making the playoffs, kind of being a middle of those teams that don't make the playoffs, with probably the Hawks, the Pistons, kind of in that mix. I think that's sort of their floor this year.
Yeah, I think they'll be there next year. I think 2021, my stock will rise on the Bulls. But in the meantime, we have the Nets, which we'll get to in a few weeks. So any final thoughts on the Bulls before we get to the over-under here? I know this is your big moment here. We're starting the previews with the Central Division. You got to talk about your team right away, whereas I probably have to wait till right before the regular season starts to talk about mine. So what do you got for the Bulls here in the over-under?
Well, the over-under is 30.5 games, which I believe went down. When I had last looked at it, it was 32.5, and I was, again, shocked. If you heard what I said before, I thought that their over-under would be significantly higher, because I think their floor is about 30 games. I think that this is a team that's going to win at least 30 games when you look at all the veterans that they have kind of coming in, if you will. When you look at what they got out of Otto Porter a year ago due to health, it's almost like they're bringing in Otto Porter, Tomas Satoransky, and Thad Young, who are massive improvements over the guys that they're replacing from a year ago. And then meanwhile, you're basically going to get an extra half season of Markkanen, an extra half season of Wendell Carter, and an extra quarter of a season from Levine if those guys are healthy. I mean, that is worth, I would say, almost 20 wins, which could put them in the 40 win range. So I think way over on the 30.5.
Yeah, I'm going to go with over, too. I'm not going to say way over, but I do think they will be better than the 30 teams for sure.
All right, well, I think that's all we got for this week. We're going to keep up all these over-unders so we can put them all together, and maybe we'll post these up somewhere so everyone can see our picks for the year and lean on us. But for me, folks, the best bet for me out of this division, I have to say, is the Bulls. I think the Bulls over is just money in your pocket, although the Cavaliers over is tempting. I think both of those overs are just juicy overs. I think those numbers are way too low for teams that have much more talent than the over-under show.
Well, get those bets in, folks. Regular season starts 6 weeks from tonight. We want to thank you guys for listening. Next week, we will have a FIBA World Cup champion. Hopefully, it is the boys in the red, white, and blue. We'll be back with another division preview. What do you say, Ben? You want to do the Southwest next week? Get the Texas teams, talk a little Texas.
A little Texas triangle. I like it. And I like the idea of talking to you again, Jason, and getting in touch with more of these listeners. I can't wait for the NBA season to start. I know the NFL just started, but my NBA juices are already flowing. I am ready to go.
We are ready to go. We are ready for you to subscribe, rate, and review.
5 stars, please.
Best of luck to Team USA here as they play France as Ben is editing and posting this podcast. Enjoy your weekend, folks. Enjoy week 2 of the NFL. We'll be back next week with another Baseline Jumper podcast as we creep towards episode 100.